Welcome back to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We head straight to our first conversation where we look at the issue of tax evasion. Now, Nigerians have actually witnessed a pattern of disturbing disregard for obeying financial obligations by government agencies, and that's really, really saddening at a time where you see increased taxes and tariff, not even minding COVID-19 and all of the hardship that Nigerians have to go through. Of course, you have government agencies not obeying and doing the needful. That will be our conversation this morning. Of course, we have an economist who will be making sense of all of this. We look at the implication for us as a country and the way forward. We have N5.8BN, who is on standby. Now, according to reports by the FIRS, it says that we have actually lost 5.8 billion naira to tax evasion by MDAs. Good morning, Mr. N5.8BN. It's good to have you join us.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, sir. Let's start off. Let's share your thoughts. I'd like to ask you what your thoughts are on this particular issue. I mean, talking about the fact that we have lost 5.8 billion naira tax evasion by government agencies, ministries, and departments. What are your thoughts on this?
I think 5.8 billion naira is an understatement because this practice is very pervasive across the ministries, let alone the agencies. I mean, I personally have experienced this some years ago, about 7 years ago, where I think it's probably Ministry of Works, no, not Works, I think it was Power or something, where they deducted the withholding tax and they never remitted that. So my company went to FIRS and the FIRS looked at their portal and they didn't see the remittance. So my PA had to go back to get the receipt from the ministry and took it to the FIRS, and still they didn't accept. I said, what is your problem? This receipt is issued by a ministry. This is the evidence that I have remitted the tax. You've actually taken the money, and then you haven't. Is it my problem that it has not gone into there? Start an investigation. Investigation they didn't start. Credit they didn't give to the company. And they stalled the company because it's so unfair that companies will have to face the fact that they can't get tax clearance because somebody there has not remitted the money. And then you don't call in the EFCC, you don't investigate this, you don't say it. And then the name of the accounting officer that made the deduction was there. Call the person, take this up internally. It's so unfair for you to have punished a company, because when you don't issue them the tax clearance, you're actually forcing them to pay the money again, twice. And then they can't trade without their tax clearance. That is grossly unfair. But it's a widespread practice.
Thank you very much, Mr. N5.8BN. I mean, so this is quite disheartening to see that the Federal Internal Revenue Service goes hard on private businesses, but the government ministries, departments, and agencies are allowed to go scot-free for this long. Is it a case of the FIRS turning a blind eye, or is it a case of just trying to, make the business of government easy and not be a blockade to the smooth running of these ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government?
Well, the thing is that when a company complains to FIRS, the duty of FIRS to call in the law enforcement agencies, or at least at the minimum, interrogate the situation with the appropriate MDA. But to take it or leave it situation where you're asking a company to pay back that same money again because you didn't see it on your portal and you're looking at the evidence that he has paid it, the receipt given to him, it means that there's complicity between FIRS and whoever else are involved in this. And I have to tell you this, that I don't think it is a standard practice for companies to do that as a matter of policy. I think it's more to do with the accounts people in the departments that may well be diverting this money to another account. So, and this thing happens all the time. It's just that they are not taking it very seriously. And when they are not taking it very seriously and calling in the ICPC or EFCC, then it means that there's complicity between the parties involved in this. We've known cases where an accounts officer opens an account and keep on paying some money into those accounts. And these are monies that have been deducted and need to reflect on the FIRS portal. And then who bears the brunt? Is the company that bears the brunt, being forced to go and pay another money, or face the reality that he doesn't get his tax clearance to continue his business.
Okay, so this is not the first time, like you have also mentioned, where we have government agencies and you have other persons not paying taxes or not remitting. At this particular point, our focus is on, government agencies not remitting. At the time in 2018, we also remember a report saying the CBN was owing about 10 trillion naira, if I'm not mistaken. Now, what is the implication of all of this, where you have government agencies not remitting taxes?
Well, the thing is, it has serious economic implications because you are depriving companies their ability to trade. Now, that is very, very unfair because you know that without your tax clearance, there's nowhere you can go. You can't tender for contracts anymore because you have to submit. Is one of the things that you have to submit. And just one single payment or two lots of payments that have not been reflected, they just simply refuse to give you your clearance. I think that's very, very unfair. And the repercussions on the private sector is just unbelievable because you suddenly bring in a company activity to a stop. It doesn't all go well for the health of our economy. Then, of course, the second one is about integrity. Where we see corruption, we have to fight corruption. Where you fail to fight or report, then there's complicity. And we need to look into this. It is just not acceptable. We will have this scale of fraudulence going on in our system.
Mr. Kenife, it all sounds strange to the layman on the street to hear that government is owing government. I mean, it sounds strange. And that government agencies, ministries and departments actually pay tax. Since this is a government and it's a government problem, you're looking at the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, the Senate, ministries like the Ministry of Agriculture. I mean, some time ago we heard that the federal government ministries are owing about 90 billion in electricity debts. Is it not possible to have these deducted at source so that we don't have some of these issues coming up? Is that possible?
I'm not sure it is possible because they make budgetary allocations for particular lines of expenditure, and then you get a contract, then they have to pay you. It is at the point of payment for the contract that they make the deduction. That deduction cannot be foreseen because, for you to deduct at source, what the government can only deduct is revenue at source. That is as you are receiving your revenue. But when you are spending, they have no way of knowing how many contracts you are going to pay. The size of this contract is at the point when you make the payment that you need to make the deduction. And then making the deduction is one thing, paying it is another thing. This matter is not the same as government agencies owing electricity bill. No, we're talking about criminal activity that certain money has been deducted and is clearly against the law. There are regulations against this. It's a criminal activity. If you're not paying electricity bill, then that's okay. They can come and cut off your electricity and then you fight it out. But this is a criminal activity where you have criminal gangs that are making deductions and channeling it to private accounts. And that is what it sounds like. I don't see that as a deliberate policy that the Director General of an agency says, look, make sure you don't pay all the taxes, all the withholding tax, keep it. And then we'll put it in a head and use it to do more. I'm not sure that is the way. This is a criminal activity, and individuals that have done this should be persecuted.
So it's really, very shocking and very saddening because at the end of the day, we're looking at the fact that the Fiscal Responsibility Act actually mandates that government agencies make this payment to the accounts. But that's not happening. And so for these violations, are there penalties? What kind of penalties? And how do we now overcome this, especially that it has to do with government? So how do we overcome all of this non-remittance by government agencies?
Well, Fiscal Responsibility Act actually deals more with the revenues accruing to different ministries, the different departments, different agencies, and there are over 200 of such agencies. It is their primary revenue that they are targeting with the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. Or of course, you can argue that those remittances of those things are primary revenues for FIRS. You can actually argue that, and they themselves will make a cut from the administration. But by and large, the focus of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 is on the income earned by agencies that are assumed to be trading and generating surplus. So the law says, in fact, there's an administrative injunction that says those pay more than 50% of your turnover. Then the main law says you have to pay 80% of your operating surplus, failing which we can come and clamp down. Office of the Accountant General will clamp down on your income and take 25% from source. So, those are the three ways that they are taking these monies. But you can see these monies coming in as primary income to these organizations, depending on their status. But the fact of the matter is, this one that we are talking about is fraudulent activity by gangsters and all kinds of people. So it needs to draw the attention of the law enforcement agencies to unlock this.
The headlines from the papers are using the word loss, Mr. Kenife. Are we to take it that these monies cannot be recovered? I mean, of course, you've said that certain persons can go down.
No, they can be recovered because the receipts are there. You can't demand your receipt. You see, the thing is this. How do they find out that money was not remitted? It's only when you come to FIRS demanding for tax clearance, they will say, okay, what's the name of the company? They will go and check. And they see all the things that have come in on this company in their portal. And then when they see those, and they will ask you to go and get your account. You get your account, your bank account. They will also see some of the transactions, and they start looking for tax that was paid or withholding tax that was paid in relation to those deductions. And that's where they find out, and they do nothing. That's the criminal side of it. They do nothing. You tell the person, okay, there's no evidence in the portal that you did this deduction was made. He said, okay, all right, okay, I'm coming. He goes to the account department, takes his invoice to them, say, look, you made this deduction. I need a receipt for this. Inland Revenue is what initially they will try and play you out, tell you to come back next week. The demand is not there. They will be doing all that until you persist and persist. They will give you the receipt. And then when they give you the receipt, you go back to the FIRS. And then they play another game. Either they talk to them or whatever, and then nothing happens. They still insist that you go and pay that money. That is where it's a criminal enterprise.
So, sir, should we say that this is a case where we can just say that all hope is lost because government would have to, remit and government is not remitting? So it's like government cheating government, and who then should correct the wrongs if government themselves are not doing the needful?
Well, you have to separate these things. There are two separate things. One is failing to account. The other one is just not complying with, what's wrong with you're owing somebody electricity bill. If he hasn't got the money, he hasn't got the money. If it's not in his budget, it has not in his budget. You can always have an arrangement for him to pay, as a window or, supplemental payment. But that's a different thing. When, according to the law, a certain deduction has been made, it has to be paid to the appropriate authority. If it doesn't happen, we have the same thing in payroll, where when they run IPPIS, that's the payroll system, when they ran it on BVN, they saw where 35 bank accounts were in the same name. And that's an officer sitting in the accounts department, having 35 account numbers and paying people's money into the account. Are you going to blame the department? You look for the people who are doing this. The government department doesn't have those bank accounts, 35 bank accounts to pay people's. It's individuals inside these accounts departments that are doing this in collusion. So when you see this, you take action. You make appropriate reports.
So who should take action? Because that's the question now.
No, the FIRS needs to take action because FIRS is the one demanding you to go and pay twice. That once has come to public notice, to their notice, They have to take action. So they are the ones to sort themselves out. Otherwise, there's complicity. And you don't turn back to somebody who has paid tax and asking him to go and pay it again because some other colleague of you or somewhere has refused to pay it in or has diverted the money. And the client goes back and gets a proper receipt to show that he has paid it, and you do nothing except to insist that he should go and pay it again twice. You know, who would you take this to?
Mr. Kenefe, it's really disheartening to hear in a time when Nigerians are really groaning under the pressure of increased taxes and levies and rates, to hear that, you know, these taxes that they're paying are not finding their way back to the government account, federal government's account. I mean, we're hearing Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Federal College of Freshwater Fisheries Technology. I don't know how many people knew that existed. We're hearing agencies like the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. I mean, how many people pay, you know, at the airports and all that, and all these airlines who are made to pay taxes? You look at what we pay to fly in Nigeria as tax or money that goes to the government and all the airline. It's quite a lot. You look at the Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, all these agencies are not remitting things like stamp duty, value-added tax that Nigerians are paying, withholding tax and pay-as-you-earn deducted from awarded contracts. Now, who slept on the ball? You know, because you've mentioned you use the word collusion, for instance. You've talked about the Federal Internal Revenue Service. We know that the Auditor General's office was the one that has, you know, unveiled this or exposed this to Nigerians. But who should pay? If you're hearing that the House of Reps and Senate, they're not also, you know, remitting the taxes, who should be held accountable? Who should pay?
The person that you do not want to be held accountable is the person that has already paid that money. That is the person from which you have deducted the money. You should give him the benefit of the doubt, because all that this company has to do is to provide the evidence that he has paid that tax that has been deducted from him. And you should deal with the company and then refer the internal matter to wherever you want to refer it within the system. So that should be now a matter between FIRS and the appropriate agency. But you must give credit. You must give credit to the company from whom this deduction has been made, so that they can go about their business. But you can't hold them to ransom, and then if you hold them to ransom, it means that you're actually demanding bribe from them, because it's totally unfair. You can't be holding them to ransom when you've already provided a prima facie evidence that this deduction has been made. And once that evidence has been provided, you should not chastise the third party. You should now refer this to an internal mechanism within the service for resolving this, or getting the culprit, or finding who is responsible. But you cannot hold the public responsible and then punish the company for no good reason.
Mr. One last one. I mean, the federal government really gave a lot of hope, especially with the action coming from the Vice President's office, with the presidential ease of doing business initiative and all that. There seemed to be sort of an upswing and an effort, you know, from the presidency, particularly the office of the Vice President, to make businesses find it easier in terms of taxes, remittances, and generally the ease of doing business. And what went wrong? What happened?
Well, they tried, actually, because don't forget that they managed to move up 20 places in the ranking, although they've suspended all the process anymore. They world by no longer doing that. But they tried. They really, really tried, because this is part of multiple taxation. But this is multiple taxation bordering on criminality, and that's the difference. The fact that they tax you in one state as your goods are crossing, going to the seaport, and tax in another state, is different. It's different because there are different tax jurisdictions. It's different from you have been taxed and the evidence that this has not transmitted. So that's a different. That is criminality. The other one is just administrative laxity, and then that needs to be dealt with. The other one is a criminal act. It needs to be prosecuted.
Okay, so let's also stay with the fact that the Auditor General, the question here would be, is it really doing enough? We know that the Constitution empowers him, Section 2, 85 subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution allows him to audit the accounts of, all federal accounts and what have you. Do you think that he's doing enough? Because one would want to ask if that audit is being carried out, currently, and we're doing it efficiently, we probably might not get to this point where we are now. So I'd like to share your thoughts. You think that the Auditor General of the Federation is doing enough?
I don't think you should expect the Auditor General to do any more than publish his report, which he has done. Fiscal Responsibility Commission, that is now, according to the revision of the law, FRA 2007, is going to be given prosecutorial power. That means that where they detect fault in the accounting, they will do an assessment and they start immediate legal action. It's no longer write a report to the General's office and then they will send the report to EFCC and these people will go around and no, those processes are going to bump, according to the new amendment. But I can't expect that FRC is going to get into this corner of non-remittance to an agency. They are actually, if they are looking at the accounts of FIRS, it's the accounts of FIRS. It is not for them to go and look at what should enter into the accounts of FIRS. So I wouldn't be expecting them to take any action or prosecute. It is the FIRS that should be doing this, reporting this. The least they would do is to contact the agency that was purported to have made this thing, just to establish that the receipts being shown to them are not fake receipts. They should establish that. And if they establish that to their satisfaction, fair enough. If they don't, they can make a report or ask the client to make a report to the EFCC or ICPC, or whichever one is applicable. But I think it's not fair that somebody who has legitimately allowed the deduction on his transaction, got a receipt to that effect, and then you are not doing anything. You have a duty. You have a duty to pursue your collection, or don't turn around and then pass that buck to the company that has already met its obligation. So the only one I can think of is either there's a special tribunal set up by government to deal with this matter, or just refer it to EFCC. Easy. And if EFCC goes in, they will unlock everything going on for years in that department, especially the accounts department. So you should get them in. And when you do this for 2 people, 3 people, then everybody will learn and then they'll stop the practice.
Okay, so do you also agree with those who are saying that the reason why we're going through what we're going through right now is because Nigeria has not adopted best practice technology as other parts of the world are doing, so that we have people not evading tax?
No, we have adopted a lot of technology. If you look at the GIFMIS, first of all, the TSA, the Treasury Single Account, was useful because it started blocking government putting deposit with a bank and then go back and borrow money. That deposit earns them 0 interest, and then they go back and borrow part of that money and be paying 15% interest. I mean, that was another kind of fraud.
So how do we now end this fraud? I mean, you are an economist. How do we end this fraud in the system?
So they stopped that, and then you now moved into that's having some traction. Yeah, having some traction, a lot of traction in there. Because I've actually seen where what one of the modules is saying is looking at when a contractor comes as just one project in the finance, if they found out that the amount of money being owed to government is almost equal to the amount government is owing people. So I'm saying, okay, so if when you come for payment, they will just go and check your company status. And then if you are claiming 5 billion, they'll tell you, we found out that you're owing us 2 billion. Can you settle that, please? And then you can settle it, and then they pay you the balance, 3 billion. So that's beginning to work. Then you have the IPPIS, which is the personnel system. And that personnel system is also unlocking the fraud, the scale of the fraud, especially when you run that over BVN. And BVN is also helping the banking system, helping everybody. So that government is trying. But these ones that are not heavily affected, okay, the CIS has set up their portal where all the payments will report, but they're failing to clean their act. Because if you have obvious cases like this, you should pursue those cases, Because you don't know what has happened when the officers have spoken to the person who would have issued the receipt. You don't know what they have talked about. You don't know, whether they did anything or did something, and they decide that they should get more money out of the company. You don't know.
All right, that's the much we can take at this point in time. Thank you so much, Mr. Kennifer, for sharing your thoughts. We do appreciate your time with us this morning, and we look forward to speaking to you on this particular issue.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kennifer is an economist, and we do appreciate his time. We look up to, we're hoping that we get to a point where there will be transparency in the system.
It's really shocking, because a lot of Nigerians from the business and the private sectors are really struggling to pay their taxes and to be good Nigerians. And to hear that government is, someone in government is taking the money to their personal accounts, it really shouldn't be the case. And
I mean, you want to say that these are persons who should uphold the law. Absolutely. And should do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Really sad. But hoping, as always, that we get to a point where we are very transparent and we're doing what is right. And of course, Nigerians would also emulate. Well, we step on the brakes right now. When we come through, we head straight to our second conversation. Of course, we'll be looking at the issue of the Remembrance Day, talking about the Armed Forces Remembrance Day and all of the activities surrounding it. Please stick around. We'll be right back.